Welcome back to part 3 of the Photography Masterclass. And now I'm being joined by 2 of my very good friends, Yoseph Setiawan and Sebastian Strand, who are both absolutely beautiful photographers, and it is my joy to watch them work, to watch them shoot, and to just see the work that they produce. It's also my joy to be their friend. They're actually part of my Connect group. So this is a very casual, friendly conversation amongst people who genuinely enjoy hanging out with each other. So anyway, we're going to get straight into it. So we're going to start with you, Yoey. Tell us about how you got into photography, what your background is, how you trained. Talk to us.
Well, it started when my dad bought me a camera. So like I kind of like, we always had a camera around, and like I think my dad noticed probably, like I always pick it up and like kind of like play around with it. Or even like when we go on a trip, like I'll be the one who kind of like in charge with the camera taking photos. So when I decided to study graphic design, I knew that I'm gonna need a better camera, like a professional one. And then my dad got me one, and just started using it and taking photos as a hobby. And I remember back at uni, I actually took a photography course, like the basic one, and then like I took the advanced one as well. And then I really got into it, and then started joining like photography club and going to a workshop, seminar, and things like that. Because like I thought that this is what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to become a photographer. And then started doing like a lot of different photography jobs. But then I realized that this is not gonna work out. Like I actually love it just as a hobby.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's how it started.
Cool, and how about you, Strand?
I got my first like little digital camera when I was like 11, and I was just so.
How many megapixels was it?
I don't even know if it was one.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. I took it everywhere, and I took photos of my friends, and the battery lasted for like 3 minutes, and I was like, snap, snap, snap. It was amazing. And so then when I was like mid-teens, I was like, I need a DSLR. I didn't know what that was, but like my dad was like, maybe you should get this, and I was like, great. And then I loved that, and so I just kind of almost overdid it for like my whole teenage years, which was amazing. And I've loved it ever since. So
good. And so in what capacity are you guys doing photography nowadays?
I'll try as much as I can to keep it just as my hobby. It's just, I don't know, sometimes it's like the reason for me to pick up a camera is to kind of like get out of something, you know, when I just feel like I'm overwhelmed with work, because my main job is as a graphic designer. Sometimes like people ask me to take photos as well, but I don't want to overdo it, because like I feel like this is like my secret space, like, you know, me and my camera. It's like every time I pick up a camera, it's like me having like, you know, being in my own zone, being in my own time, going to places and just like just be with myself.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing it for work from time to time. For instance, like when I'm working on a campaign for church, and photography is like the main elements, the main visual elements for it. So I'll be the one who take the photos.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you know, it's just like photography is something that I use a lot within my graphic design works.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I design something or I come up with like a concept or idea, sometimes I'm also thinking about like, oh, this is going to be the photo that I'm going to use, and this is how I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
So, but not every time.
Yeah.
So, only at that capacity.
Yeah, that's great though. How about you?
I think for me, I'm such a nostalgic person. I like tend to fall in love with like a certain moment and just really feel it. And so I want to do everything I can to like capture it. So whatever camera I have with me, whether it's my phone or, you know, my proper camera or whatever, I just try to capture a moment because I want to like hold on to it. And that's often how like my photography happens. So it's not, I don't necessarily do it much for work. I occasionally do. But it's more about just bringing it with me, because I have this like, I just have this like need or want to like capture a certain moment or an atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with both of you because it is kind of like a sideline thing that you actually do professionally, but it's not your main thing. But the bulk of the stuff that you shoot is just for the love of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's always really cool. So in the part one, I was talking about how different photographers have different ways of seeing, and that's what is so beautiful about all of the different, shots that we see in the world. And so for you both, what is it that you're looking for? When you're looking through that viewfinder, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that makes you click down on that shutter?
I think for me, like, I tend to overshoot a lot because I'm just like, oh, this is amazing, quick. But I try to filter my photos by our friend River Bennett. She said once that the photos that she takes has to make you feel something. They have to make you feel something.
Yeah.
And that really struck me. And now I keep quoting her everywhere because I think that was amazing. And that's what I try to do now is I'm going, what is special? Why am I feeling something when I'm looking at this photo right now? And those are the kind of moments that I try to capture, whether it's people or landscapes or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So good. How about you, Yo?
Every time I look through my viewfinder, I'm always looking for two things. First is beauty, and the other one is story. When I take photos, I take a lot of landscapes because why not? Because live in Australia, Sydney, it's beautiful, the beaches, the sunrises, and there's so many beautiful landscapes around Australia, and we all can agree that there's beauty in it, and I want people to see it, because I feel like sometimes I feel selfish. I don't know. There's like some kind of like a weight of responsibility. When I see something beautiful, I need to capture it.
I've got to show everyone.
I feel like if I enjoy this, if I keep this to myself, like I'm selfish. Like people need to see this, and sometimes that's the reason why I need to have my camera all the time with me. Because you'll never know. You're just like walking around, or like you're driving around somewhere, and then you see something beautiful, and then that responsibility comes like, oh, I need to take this and I need to show people, and that's because there's beauty in it.
Yeah.
But more than that, I love taking photos of people, because when you take photos of people, they have both elements.
Yeah.
There's beauty in people.
Yeah.
And they also have story.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I go on a trip, I just love just standing in the middle of the street and then just kind of like observing around, looking at people. And sometimes I try to like understand, why are they here? What are they doing? Like there's like a curiosity inside me. Like I want to know this person. Like I want to know their story. And then I want to capture it. And then again, like, I don't want to keep this to myself. Like, I feel like when I go back and seeing my friends or family, I want to tell the story of this person.
Yeah. And no one will tell it like you tell it.
Yeah, exactly.
So in the last, couple of decades, right, digital cameras have been invented.
Yep.
And I guess since then, there's been this like crazy proliferation of people who are now actual professional photographers or hobby photographers. Like every man and their dog is a photographer, which on one hand is like the most beautiful thing, because there's more beautiful photos in the world. Like I'm all for it. But at the same time, as photographers, you've got to manage comparison because so many people are doing it now. And so how has that been for you guys? How have you managed that tension, and like has that been a journey?
I'm so guilty of that. Even like sitting here right now with you guys, like I'm like, I feel like I need to just step out, because like you guys are like amazing photographers, and like who am I? Like it's something that I struggled with maybe up until now. Comparison, like always comparing myself or like comparing my works to some other photographers, especially like you mentioned with the development of like digital era, like Instagram, for instance. A lot of people now sharing their works, and it's like every time I go to Instagram, I go to the explore page, it's like, oh wow, who is this person? Who is this person? And it's just sometimes like, I just felt like, oh, I need to put down my camera. Like I thought I'm good, but I'm not good enough. There's always people better than me. I had a moment like that. But at the end of the day, I go back and then just look at myself like, what is the very first reason why you love doing this?
Yeah.
And then when I think of that, I mentioned it earlier. I realized that the reason why I love doing photography is because that's my way of communicating.
Yeah.
And that's my way of telling story.
Yeah.
And if I can borrow this tagline from Canon, Canon says, it's their taglines, no one sees it like you. At part 1, you mentioned that, you talk about that as well, and you unpack it so beautifully. And that's what I believe now. Yeah. So even though there's always going to be someone or photographers that are better than you, and if you always compare your works to other photographers' work, there's no end to it. But at the end of the day, you need to remember that no matter like how similar or like, you know, you're doing the same kind of like photography, you're doing portrait, whether you're doing portrait or landscapes, you have something in you that you can put into your photography.
Yeah.
For me, it's the story.
Yeah.
Even though like we're looking at the same person, but from the angle I see this person.
Yeah.
Or like the story that I know about this person.
Yeah.
No one can tell it exactly the way I tell it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that helps me. Like since then, like I know no matter what, my work, my photography is always going to be unique.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling it from my point of view, from my perspective.
So good. How about you, Strand?
I think what you said, like you sometimes go out and just stand in the street and look at people, and I think that's the point of difference is you are there to tell that story, and if you weren't there and if you don't tell that story, no one else is.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how good someone else is at photography, and you can try and compare yourself and whatever, but they are not where you are right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. And what you said about that whole manifold, like everyone sees it differently, I think if I get a little bit like Spiro is like,
please.
You know, God is so manifold and his creation is so manifold, you can't run out of ways to like tell of its beauty and the stories. And I think that's so important to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay, so let's talk editing.
Yes.
Getting very practical now. Okay, so what does your editing process look like? Has it evolved through the years? Would you say that like sometimes you look back on old photos and you're like, oh my gosh, that was such a fad kind of way of editing? Or what are you searching for with your edit?
Gosh, I think I'm one of those, like, I love the look of film photography, but I haven't put in the time to like learn how to properly kind of do it. Yep. And so like I'm there with my iPhone and then adding like a nice visco filter, right? But I think in the beginning I was so obsessed with the editing that I was like, any photo can look great as long as I just apply a bunch of filters, you know, and I went through that whole Instagram kind of like, you know, when it was really grungy and you would add all kinds of stuff and just slide the stuff and and I was like, why doesn't it look good? Like I've done all the editing. And I realized more and more over the years, became more and more evident that as long as I have the subject looking good, whether the subject is landscape or a person in a nice, you know, place or something, that's always going to outweigh the editing itself. Now, editing is a nice bonus. Like if like film is unbelievable, but I'd much rather have like a crappy digital photo that looks really digital, but a killer subject than the opposite.
I like to think about it like makeup. Like it makes a beautiful face more beautiful.
Yes.
But maybe the face isn't that beautiful to begin with.
This is why I don't wear makeup. I can't do anything about it.
It's not going to change the face from how it looks. You know, like if you're working with something raw and beautiful to begin with, then that editing is just going to like take it to the next level. Yeah. How about you, Yoey? What's your edit process?
My editing process is kind of like all like merged together. You know how like sometimes people split it into different, 3 different parts, like pre-production, production, and post-production, right? So usually people do the edits on post-productions, but sometimes I do it even before. So like when we're talking about concept and like photos, okay, we're gonna take photos of this. Sometimes I'm already thinking about, this is how I'm gonna edit it. You know? And then while I'm taking photos, I know that, my camera only have like the bigger aperture is 2.8 and I actually need it to be more. And then in my head, I'll be thinking, I can edit it. So this is how I'm gonna fix it. Or when the situation or the condition is so like, it's too low light and I need a little bit more lights. I know that, I can do this in my editing process. And another example is when I take photos of people on the street or like wherever, like I want this person to be the focus of it, but because I don't have a zoom lens, because I only bring a wide lens with me, and then I started thinking about, okay, this is how I'm gonna crop it.
Yeah.
So the whole process is kind of like merging into one. And with editing, I have my boundaries. Like you said, when you think that editing is like a makeup. So you know how sometimes a lot of photographers out there, they have their own presets and they even like sell it for Lightroom. And I never have, I don't think I ever have like a one editing style. Yeah. It's always different. Because when I talk about how photography is my way of telling story, so on my editing process, the reason why I edit the photos is because it's like a tool to make your message clearer, or like to help the photos, the image, to tell the story better.
Yeah.
Either whether it's with color or with cropping or with retouching. Or with adjustment. Yeah. And sometimes people ask me, hey, can you make me look like this instead of that? And that's where my boundary is. Because like, well, if I have to do that, that means that I'm telling the wrong story, you know? Yeah. I'm not telling a true story.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of like my editing process.
I love that.
Great. Yeah. Let's look at some photos.
Oof.
Okay, we're going to fly through these really quickly, okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Yoseph, tell us about these.
This is the latest Young and Free live EP recording.
Yeah, and we've got some more Young and Free ones here
That's
too.
That's the previous year.
All of my best friends.
Yeah, that was really fun. I think this one, I really like this one because the title of the album is All of My Best Friends. So to me, it's very important that, you know, when I take photos, to make it look like, you know, we have some kind of like closeness.
Yeah.
And to make them look like, oh, they're all best friends.
Yeah, so good.
And this is the one that I did for Heart for the House campaign.
Yeah.
The idea of this shoot is, again, to tell story and then to show the beauty of people, of humanity.
Beautiful.
And this one, this is the photos that I took for Papa's new single. So yeah, this is fun because it's like a last minute thing. So we're just trying to like pull out like a photo shoot within like a short period of times. But that's what I love working with team, because sometimes you don't need that, you know, that much time, but you can just pull something good.
Who's this cutie?
This is pictures of my wife.
Beautiful.
So I took these when we were traveling in Japan, and I shot it on film. Yeah. So when I'm traveling, I love to take photos on film. Yeah. Because, you know, with film, you don't get the chance to see how the pictures looks like straight away. So it has to be quick, and that's what you want to do when you. I mean, that's what I want to do when I'm traveling. I don't want to spend too much time taking photos and then forget to enjoy the moment.
Yes.
So when I shoot with film, I see something beautiful, like with the lights and the composition and everything, and I just like, let's take quick photos and then we can move on to, you know, the new spot.
I love it.
And this is my backyard.
Wow.
Yeah, this is your daily.
This is my daily. What I love to do is waking up early in the morning and then go down to the beach and to see the sunrise. And because this is something that I do daily, sometimes it's easy to just, you know, do the usual.
Yeah.
The sun over the horizon with the ocean, and that's it. But the reason why I keep going down there for sunrise is because like I kind of like challenge myself to see it differently every day. Yeah. To try to like maybe instead of looking this way, maybe today I'm gonna look the other way.
Yeah. So good.
And this is my favorite band in the world, Middle Kids. So it was really fun that I get to shoot one of their shows in Sydney. Wow. This is good because so they're actually playing 2 shows in Sydney. So I got to sit in on the first show, kind of like to rehearse. And then on the second one, I took photos for them. So sometimes it helps. Or even like if you don't get to do that, even just going to a rehearsal, So you know exactly where things are going to happen. So you know exactly where to position yourself to capture the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
That's all of
stunning.
Yoe's. Now, Strand, I want you to tell us about the zine that you've been working on. You've been working on a personal project. I think it's been your lockdown project.
Yes.
Talk to us about it.
I just, a lot of people have been like, hey, you should try and sell prints. And I was like, I don't know. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and sell some prints. So I'm going to start like a little print selling whatever for anyone who wants to buy. We'll see if there's anyone.
Link below.
And for the launch, I'm going to do this little mini zine that kind of introduces my work, I guess, just from page to page. Really simple. And so that's been my lockdown project.
Yeah. I love that you've done this because, like, it's not your job to do this. It's just been a little passion project. Yeah. And I personally love your work, but I love the way that you've curated this scene.
Yeah.
So we're going to flick through. This is very exclusive. He hasn't released this yet.
This is only draft, so things are still changing. Don't sell this online. Yeah, I mean, this one, we were on a shoot for church, and it was in Shanghai, and there was a monsoon that rolled into the city, and it was just, you're in this massive city, millions and millions of people. And I looked out the window, and this bus driver pulled up, and you just saw kind of like this faded, person. And then he disappeared again into the storm, and I realized I'd never see him again. And so I snapped the photo, and then
passing moment.
Yeah. This is just kind of borders have always fascinated me.
Yeah.
People coming, going, that kind of a thing. And so there's something about these photos that kind of captured me, and I captured them. Yeah. This is the Judean desert, and I was kind of looking out here, and then I realized that this is likely where Christ was tempted for 40 years, and I was just kind of standing there looking at it, and so this is just my iPhone just snapping it, but it just such rugged, raw landscape that just spoke to me, kind of a thing.
iPhone photo, people. iPhone photo.
Yeah.
So good.
This is iPhone as well, the swan. We love the swan.
This is my all-time favorite.
I was just out for a jog. Yeah,
beautiful.
It was winter in Europe, in Düsseldorf, and I was just out for a jog. And I snapped it with flash, and I just love the swan. So I was like, hey, why not? It's not a special photo, it's just kind of stands out. It is
a special photo.
Sure, but there's something about the atmosphere that kind of captures you.
Absolutely.
And here's Taya singing on a Hillsong United tour.
Beautiful.
Oh, and this is driving in the middle of winter in the north of Sweden, kind of reminding me of where I grew up in Stockholm. And I realized, as I was curating this, that this doesn't happen as often anymore where I grew up.
Yeah, wow.
Even though we had snow when I grew up, it doesn't really happen that much anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's like a lot milder now. So being able to go back up there and seeing these piles of snow kind of really reminded me of that cozy winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it.
That's beautiful.
So that was part 3 of the Photography Masterclass. Thanks so much for joining us. Let me just pray for you. Jesus, I just thank you for every single person that has joined us for this masterclass. I pray that their eyes would see the world in a fresh way. I pray that you would give them energy, that you would give them inspiration, that you would just connect them to people who can teach them, that they would be able to upskill it where they need to. But God, that you would just illuminate the eyes of their heart, Jesus, that as they shoot, that they would be shooting things that glorify you and that capture the world in a unique way. Thanks so much for giving us light and being able to collaborate with you. Amen.